You're welcome.
Turn all my stuff off over here. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Thank you for joining me in this class. This is my first class in 2024. And today, well, my name is Melanie Mirzayan. I'm the owner of Wild Bakes and Cakes. And today we are going to make Winter Wonderland cupcakes. And these guys are super cute and they're super fun and they're actually really easy to make. I was talking to one of my friends a couple days ago, and she was telling me her daughter really likes the movie Frozen. And these cupcakes ended up reminding her of that theme. She's like, oh, maybe next time I'll make them. So if you guys have any kiddos out there that are into the whole Frozen theme, these would be the perfect cupcakes for their birthdays. But with that said, let's get started. Let's go to the top-down camera, please. Thank you. All right, so let's go over all the fun things that we're going to need to make this cute little cupcake. First, you're obviously going to need your cupcakes. I had included a recipe, a vanilla recipe that I normally use in the class handout. So if you guys were able to download that and make it, if not, any cupcake obviously will do. So you just need any kind of cupcake. All right, move all this out of the way. All right, you will need your sweet tooth berry chocolate meltables. I'm gonna go with the color white, and I'm gonna color my chocolate to the shades that I want. I know Michael's, they have all kinds of different shades of colors, pre-made meltables that you can get. I know they have like a really cool midnight blue, and they have the light blue, so you can go that route if you want. But I'm going to show you guys how to actually color the white one. All right. Then you guys will need your food coloring, and make sure to get the water-based food coloring, because there is another one that's oil-based, and that one you end up using, sorry, you know what? Scratch. We're not coloring the chocolate. The chocolate is for our snowflakes. We are actually coloring our buttercream. Sorry about that. But yes, you are going to need the water-based for our buttercream. They also have oil-based, and that's the one that you would need to color your chocolates. Okay, but we're not coloring chocolates today. Scratch that. Okay, you're going to need some sort of sprinkles if you want to decorate them even more. I like the kind of sugary one, kind of adds a little bit of sparkle to the cupcake. So these are all optional if you guys want to use that. And we will need a few different tips just to kind of show you guys close up here. We're going to do 3 different kind of techniques of buttercream on our cupcakes, okay? So one of them, we will use this tip, which is my favorite, to kind of create that rose on the cupcake. All right, so this is 2D. We have this little guy, which is tip number 21. And we have this other one that's a little bit more open on the top, and that's a tip number 32. Essentially, if you guys have been doing this for a while, you know that you can use any kind of different tips to capture different look and feel. But for this class, we're just going to go ahead and do those 3. Okay. You can also use tip number like 4 or 5. The difference is just how big the hole is to trace our snowflakes. Okay, you don't need to have a tip to do that. You can use your piping bag, but I just wanted to show you guys that this is also an option if this is easier for you guys to use. Okay, and of course for the little ones, you're going to need the couplings over here to be able to put it in your piping bag. So you'll also need your piping bag to make all this happen. All right, so if we are ready, let's get started.
Hey, Melanie, before we get started, we do have a few questions.
Yes,
The first one is, do you have an egg-free version to make the cupcakes?
I do have an egg-free version. If you guys want, if you send me a message on my Instagram page, which is Wild Bakes, I'll be able to share that recipe with you. I also have a recipe that's gluten-free, if that's anybody's interested in that. Just let me know on Instagram and I can get that to you guys as well.
Awesome. And then the second one is, are they vegetarian?
The cupcakes.
Yes, ma'am.
This one is not because I'm using butter.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. But yeah, if you guys have, just a little bit of a background, my son has a lot of food allergies. So through that process, I had to kind of um, start making desserts for him to be able to enjoy. So, we went through the egg-free, dairy-free, gluten-free, nut-free. So I definitely have recipes for those kind of cupcakes. If anyone's interested, again, just send me a message on Instagram, Wild Bakes, and I'll get that to you guys as well. But the one that I posted on Michael's is just a regular normal recipe for a vanilla cupcake. Okay. All right. So for us to get started, I'm actually going to do the little chocolate snowflakes first, because these guys need some time to sit to harden up so we can use it to decorate our cupcakes. Okay. So we're going to do that first. And I had included a little kind of simple tracing sheet for the snowflakes, just as a guide. If you've been, again, doing this for a while, sometimes, freehanding it's easier, but for all the ones that are newbies and beginners, this should make it easier for you guys to do this. All right. Okay, so let me clean it up a little bit. We're going to need our melted chocolate, our white chocolate. Make sure it's nicely melted and ready to go. Okay. And we'll need a piping bag. And again, this is where, if you think it'll be easier for you guys to have a tip put in the bag, again, you can do number 4. Number 5 is a little bit bigger. Maybe number 4 might be better. Or you can just go ahead and use the bag by itself, and we'll just cut a little hole, and then that's how we can get started on our snowflakes. Okay, so for the template, so you'll have the template first, and then you have to put on a parchment paper on top of it, and that way you could see through, and you can pipe your chocolate on top of the parchment paper, and that way you can remove this and still have your tracing paper underneath. Okay. And again, if you guys have any questions, please put it in the chats, and that way I can hopefully get those answered. All right, so we're gonna put some chocolate in here. And sometimes, just a little tip, if you guys run out of these piping bags for projects like this, you can always use one of these. I think I have one I can show you. The regular Ziploc bags that have like the straight edge. These also work great for piping purposes. Just, last minute, you have no other option kind of deal. All right, so I'm going to put my chocolate in there. If you guys could see that. So if you're following along, go ahead and get your chocolate in your piping bags. All right. I'm going to push everything down, all the way down. All right. And you want to work a little bit fast with chocolate, because it starts to set, it starts to get hard, and then it'll be kind of hard to squeeze out the chocolate and start tracing it. Okay. So just a little side note there too. And you don't want to cut the hole too big, because you don't want it to start pouring out, and you don't want to cut it too small that you have a hard time squeezing it out. So just go small first, test it out. And if it's not working, you can always make the hole a little bit bigger. All right. So we're going to start maybe there. I'm going to test my chocolate out real quick, just to make sure it's coming out okay. Yep. That looks fine. And all you have to do is, take your time. The first few ones might not come out great, which is fine. The cool thing is, whatever that's under, like the underneath, how can I explain it so it makes sense? When you're piping it, when you lift your chocolate, here, I can show you guys. The top of it might look a little bit funky, but then on the back of it, because it's touching the parchment paper, it'll be nice and smooth and cute, okay? So don't worry too much about messing it up the first few. All right, and all you have to do is just kind of, hopefully you guys could see that, trace over the lines. And it's kind of, and you don't have to do all the lines, just make sure it's like straight line down. One diagonal this way. One the other way. Okay, and you feel like that's kind of good starting point just to practice, then that's all you do. And then on the tips, you just kind of create tiny little arms, just like that. All right, and again, like I said, this is just a guide, so you don't have to cover everything you see in the beginning. If it's overwhelming, just do what you can. All right.
We have a question.
Yes.
They state when I am melting the chocolate chips with little milk, they are not retaining their shape. So they're asking, how do they keep up the shape? And also, do they add milk or not?
In the chocolate?
Yes.
Okay, so when you melt the chocolate, if it's not, is it too liquidy or what's going on with it that's not retaining the shape?
Yes, too liquidy.
Too liquidy? Okay. So did you put, because on the bag, let me show you guys real quick. It states that you can add vegetable oil to make it a little bit more liquidy. In this case, we don't want to do that. So if you added any vegetable oil, then you made it a little bit too thin. And you can always go back and add more chocolate to it and melt it and see if you get a better consistency that way. I'm hoping that's kind of what happened if oils were added to it, because usually my experience with the meltables, they end up being kind of on the thicker side if you don't add anything to it. So when you're creating desserts that you're dipping into chocolate, like adding those, the oils are kind of essential. Hopefully that answered the question. If not, please explain better and I can hopefully help, but we're going to continue with this. All right, so I'm going to do one more. And you want to do your chocolate a little bit on the thicker side. You don't want it to be too thin because then it'll break when you try to lift it, okay? So you're just making X's, straight lines or X's, and creating little arms at the end of them. All right, just like that. But if you've done this before, then obviously feel free to kind of trace the whole thing if you like. And again, online, they have so many different templates, different kind of shapes for snowflakes that you could get. Okay, so I tried to kind of find the easiest ones for this class. All right. So you just go ahead and do however many cupcakes you have. You can make them smaller, you can make them bigger. It's totally up to you. All right, and then you're gonna let this sit for a little bit and we'll continue kind of decorating our cupcakes. And when we're done, we can come back and put this on top and they look super cute. Another tip, once the chocolate is kind of wet, you can add like fun little sprinkles to it just to add like shimmer. Okay, so it doesn't have to be the sugary one. It could be colored. It's totally up to you what kind of look and feel you're going for. All right. All right, so this is our chocolate process. Any questions?
Yes, we do have one question.
Yes.
Can we use the cupcake recipe for making cake, or do we need to make any modifications?
Nope, you can make cakes, you can make cupcakes, you can make whatever you want with it. It just all depends So the recipe that I included, it could be cupcakes or it could be like a 6-inch cake. But if you obviously have like a bigger pan, or if you want to do a bigger cake, then you would just double the recipe. So it just all depends on what you're using it for. All right, so I'm going to move this out of the way. And we're going to start with our cupcakes. All right, so for this one, we are going to have 3 different colors. All right, we're going to have our white to kind of represent our snow, and then 2 different shades of blue, light blue and a dark blue. And again, you know, if you want to change up the colors and customize it to whatever you want to do, obviously feel free to do that. But for this class, we're just going to use the blues. All right. Okay, so we have our white one, and I'm going to do 2 different shades. Let me get a little bit of the white here. Now, a fun little trick is if you're going to use, let's say we're doing blue and we're going to have a light blue and we're going to have a dark blue. Sometimes best way to do that is create your light color first and then separate what you need for your dark color. So that way you can just add to it and then get it to the color that you really want instead of like starting from scratch. Okay. So I'm going to get a little bit more in here. We're going to get our base, which is our light blue. And then whatever I need for my dark blue, I'll just transfer it over here and keep adding color to it. Okay. The liquid ones, these guys are very, very concentrated and they come out super, super dark. So start very, very slow, like tiny little drops, and then you can add to it as you go. That's why sometimes I like kind of the gel versions of these. You have a little bit more control over it, but we're going to do the liquid. So I'm just going to put 1 tiny little drop. Okay. I'm going to mix it up and see what I get. And then I can, like I said, always add. See, it's already giving me kind of a dark shade. All right, so just kind of keep mixing it until you get it all incorporated. All right. And it looks like my buttercream might be a little bit on the thinner side. You guys can always add powdered sugar to make it thicker. All right, so I have my base. I'm going to take now a little bit of it out, transfer it to this bowl so I can make it darker. And I don't need a lot of the dark because I'm just going to use that as an accent. So I just need a little bit. And I'm going to keep adding more color here to make it a darker shade. Oops, I got it all over my finger too. And these things stain, which is terrible, but they do eventually come out. All right, so see how this is getting darker. All right, once we get it all ready to go, then we're going to start typing. All right, so for the white buttercream, I'm going to use the, let's see, which one should we do? We're going to use this one, which is 32. Okay. And for our dark blue, it's going to be the smaller one. So we're going to use, and again, you can mix and match. It doesn't have to be in this order. 21, and then we'll use our rose with the big 2D. All right. So I'm going to create the rose first on my cupcakes and then kind of do the accent decorations on the sides, okay? So the rose will be the light blue. Sometimes I have to talk to myself to organize things in my head. I don't know if you guys ever do that.
We have
Yes,
a question. They say I like whipping cream instead of buttercream. How should one stabilize it? Like it melts too fast.
I'm sorry, what was that again? What's the
So they would prefer to use the whipping cream instead of the buttercream, but how should they stabilize it because it melts too fast?
It does melt too fast. I don't really work too much with the whipping cream just because of for that reason. I think there is meringue powder that you can add to it just to make it a little bit thicker. But
Hmm.
I, like I said, I haven't really played too much around with whipped cream for that purpose.
Yes, ma'am. And then we have two more questions. Do you ever use the egg white powder in your frosting?
White powder, what kind of powder?
Egg white.
Oh, egg white powder. Sometimes I do, yes.
Yes, ma'am. And
It just, oh,
then
sorry,
the
go ahead.
I'm sorry. The last question is about the egg-free cake. They were wondering the same thing, like would it be necessary to make any modifications?
For the egg-free one, from my experience, not so much. As long as your recipe has like the baking sodas and the powders, sometimes applesauce or like vinegar is needed to kind of be able to help the cake rise. I have the recipe. I can't think of it top of my head what are the kind of like the measurements. But yes, like honestly, there have been times where I've just used a regular cake recipe and I just did not put the eggs in there, depending on, right? I mean, if the recipe calls for like 6 eggs, then you can't really necessarily not put the eggs in there and make it work. But if it's like 1 egg or 2 eggs, sometimes you can actually get away with it and not have to do anything else.
Yes, ma'am. So they said they used applesauce as a replacement, but the cupcakes fall apart.
I know it gets tricky when you start, removing like eggs and doing gluten free and all that stuff. It does get tricky. It's just you have to find the right measurements, I guess, the right recipe. There are some recipes out there that they just don't work. You do it and you're like, wow, this really didn't come out as I expected it. So sometimes you just have to try different ones and see which one comes out okay.
Yes, ma'am. And then somebody said, can you please go over how to load the attachment to the piping bag?
Yes, I will do that. So sorry, for the rose one, because the tip is already big, you don't need these little attachments. You just put it inside your bag and you cut the tip off. Okay. And now that's kind of what we did. And I'm putting the buttercream in there so we can kind of create our rose. All right. And then for the little ones, we will definitely go over how to um, attach the tips properly.
Is it a way you can move your camera down a little bit? They're saying they can't see what you're doing.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, and I'm making a mess on the table. All
Thank
right. So we have our light blue inside the piping bag and we have the tip. All right, so we're just gonna kind of move the buttercream down, get it all the way down, and you hold it like this with your thumb, and then you twist until you get a nice good grip on it. Okay. And there we go. So now we're gonna create our rose. So for the rose, so for our cupcake, we're gonna do the rose on one side, we're gonna have our white swirly on the other side, and then we're gonna use the dark blue kind of accents throughout. Okay, so you kind of have to think about where you're putting your decorations so you have space for everything that you're trying to do. All right, so for the rose, let me just make sure there we go. For the rose, all you have to do is squeeze, hold it and squeeze, and then twist, twist, twist until you get the rose. Okay, it's super easy. So it's holding here. I'll do one more. Okay, so you hold the tip down You squeeze your buttercream and then you start going around it. And it'll start creating your rose. And you can keep going around and around if you want to make a bigger rose. Okay. So we have that. Let me do one more. Okay. So you hold it down, you squeeze your buttercream, and you start going around and around. Just like that. Any questions on the rose creation?
No questions so
No
far.
questions? Okay, perfect. All right, so now we are going to do our white buttercream. And again, so for this one, we are using the bigger tip of the two little ones, which is the 32. And the way this works, you're going to need your little couplers. So this piece will go first. So it'll go straight into the bag. Okay. And kind of push it all the way down so it's nice and kind of snug. And you're going to have to cut the tip off. Okay. So you want to cut it. So see all those little, the lines, you want to cut it right underneath it.
Hey,
All
Melissa,
right.
we have a question. Was that rose tip a number 32 tip?
The rose one, let me just make sure, because you could use different kinds of tips for that. This one is 2D.
Thank you.
Okay, so you pull that off. We have the bag right there. So now this is where you can switch out your tips. Okay, so we're gonna put the tip right on top, and we're gonna use this piece to secure it down. And you just twist, twist until it's nicely tight. And now you have your tip ready to go. And let's say you want to use the same color, but you want to switch out your tip to something different. All you have to do is just undo, right? Just like that. Switch out your tip and and then lock it back in. So it's very convenient doing it that way if you're using the same kind of, same color buttercream. All right, so now I am going to get my white in here. Throw it all in there. All right, I'm gonna bring this back up and squeeze all the buttercream down. Okay, and again, the way I do it that works for me is I pinch like this and I twist a couple times just to make it nice and kind of snug, and I have control over my bag. All right. So now we're going to create our kind of swirly line over here. And all you do is squeeze all the way, squeeze until it comes out, and then just go swirly, kind of zigzag all the way around. Super cute. Okay.
We do have a question. Do
Yes.
you use your piping bags?
I don't, because by the time and these are what's the word, they get, because there's so much butter in buttercream, it gets kind of oily and gross. I mean, I guess you can, if you really want to wash it, spend the time and wash it out, you can definitely do that, but I normally don't. All right, so we're gonna again squeeze at an angle and then go at a zigzag pattern all the way around it. Okay. And for this one, maybe we can do something a little bit different. for this one, you can definitely do squeeze and lift, squeeze and lift, squeeze and lift, squeeze and lift. And as you're squeezing, you're holding it in place. You're holding your tip in place and you're just lifting it. Okay, just like that, just to get a different kind of look. Squeeze in place and lift, squeeze in place and lift. And that's the technique that we're going to use to do our little blue accents as well. Okay. All right, so now we have that out of the way. Any questions so far?
Not yet.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to do our accent, which is our dark blue. Get another piping. And again, same thing. To add this little guy, we're going to need our little attachments, our couplers. So again, this piece will go first. I'm going to move my cupcake so I don't mess them up. So that piece will go in the bag first. Then you're going to squeeze it all the way down, nice and snug. You're going to cut off the tip. Again, make sure you don't cut too much of it off because your bag will kind of pop out and you won't stay secure. And you don't want to go too far in because then that'll interfere with your buttercream coming out. Okay. So right underneath, like I said, the little lines is where I end up cutting my bags. Just like that. And then the tip will go on top. And we will use this piece to kind of secure it on. All right, nice and whoops. Cut. Okay. Now we're going to put our dark blue color in there. All right. Put it up. And again, squeeze it all the way down. All the way down. Have it in your hand. Squeeze, kind of pinch, and then twist, twist until you have a nice grip on it. Okay. So now we are going to do our little accents, which you could kind of do whatever you want. You can go around your rows, you can have them kind of spread out. It's definitely up to you how you want to decorate the cupcakes, okay? And it's the same concept. You hold your tip down, straight down, you squeeze, lift. Squeeze, lift. And if you want the little stars to be small, your squeezes are short. Okay, if you want them to be bigger, then you're squeezing the buttercream out a little bit longer. So for example, I'm going to hold, I'm going to squeeze and then lift. See how that one is a lot bigger than this one. You can even do, tiny little squeezes throughout. Okay. Let's do another one. We're going to squeeze down and lift. Squeeze, lift. Squeeze down and lift. Okay. And we kind of did the same thing with the white, right? So we're going to go in between them and do tiny little squeezes, tiny little color pops. There you go. Squeeze and lift. So the longer you hold the squeeze, the bigger your stars will be. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Any questions on this?
Yes, we do have one. When they hold the piping bag in their hand after a little while, the buttercream starts melting. They'd like to know how to overcome that.
If your buttercream is melting, then you made your buttercream a little bit on the liquidy side, on the lighter side, which mine is a little bit on that side too. what you would have to do is you would have to put it back in a bowl and then put a little bit of powdered sugar and give it a mix again to get it thicker. Unfortunately, once it starts going liquidy in the bag, not much you can do. It starts pouring out and it doesn't really hold the shape either. It's unfortunate. It happens to me as well. You just kind of, it's one of those things. You would have to go back to the drawing board, add your powdered sugar, give it a mix, get it to the consistency that you want. That's a little bit on the thicker side, especially when you're piping things, and then come back and do it again. Okay, so it's not a total loss. It's just kind of annoying. You have to go back and redo it, I guess. I hope that helped answer that question. Any other ones?
Yes. What can you use besides powdered sugar? Last time they used powdered sugar, their kiddos complained the frosting was too sweet.
I know that's I haven't really used anything else other than powdered sugar to get it thicker. I want to say meringue powder might also be a good alternate way of thickening your buttercream. But I usually stick with powdered sugar, and I know it does get kind of very sweet at that point.
Yes, ma'am. And then the last question, does keeping the buttercream in the fridge, like would that help it overcome like melting?
No, not really, because it'll get maybe in the beginning, because if you put it in the fridge, it gets kind of firm and then you can't do anything with it. So you have to let it come back a little bit more into like room temperature to be able to use it for piping purposes. And then, it's the same cycle. And then it gets warmer, it gets more liquidy. So it's just a vicious pattern, unfortunately, with buttercream.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes it's not your friend.
We have a few more questions. Instead of the
Yes.
powdered sugar, can they use baking powder?
I have never heard of that or done that, so I don't know.
Yes, ma'am. And then do you recommend any store brand frosting to use or to doctor them?
Store-bought frosting. Yes, Michael's actually has kind of pre-made frosting that you can use. They have them in like tubes that are perfect for adding tips on it too. So all you would have to do is, I wish I had one to show you guys, but you essentially, get the tip off, open up the bag, and then you would put your tip right onto the bag and secure it in, and you can use it as a piping bag as well. So you have that option, and they have a few different colors. Or they also have, Michael's has like the tub white pre-made frosting that you can also use. You can buy that and then add colors to it if you like. I've actually done that a few times when I'm, in a rush, or I have like very small projects that I work on. And I just need something that's already made and ready to go, especially the colored ones. Like the red one's great. The black one is great because then you don't have to add so much color to it. Okay. So just keep that in mind. You have options outside of you doing it. All right. Any other questions?
No question. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, okay. No questions.
Okay. All right. So this is where the fun begins, kids. We have our chocolates ready to go. It doesn't take long at room temperature for them to kind of harden. But if you were in a rush and you wanted them to kind of be workable, and it's hard, and you can pop them on and go, you can put them in the fridge literally for like a minute and you're ready to go. Okay. So now we get to decorate our cupcakes with our chocolate snowflakes. But see how cute they come out? On the other side, it's nice and smooth. This is the side that we were working on. And all you have to do is just kind of find a fun spot on your cupcake and place the chocolate right on top. Okay, just like that. And you can, like I said, make them bigger, smaller. It's totally up to you. But they sit nicely on your cupcake. And again, you can add last minute touches just to make them look super cute, is adding your sugar sprinkles on top just to give it a shimmer. All right, just like that. And your cupcakes are ready to go. And there you go. These are super, super cute. And they're very fun to make. All right. So this is all we have for the class. I hope you guys enjoyed the process and learned a couple piping techniques. Do you guys have any last minute questions or comments? I would love to hear all that. Okay, I don't see anything popping up. All right, well, this kind of concludes our class for today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you guys, like I said, had fun and learned a couple fun little tricks. My next class is January 20th, and that one's going to be really fun. We are going to make snowman, kind of penguin-ish looking cakesicles, and we're going to use fondant to do that, which is my favorite thing to work with. So if you guys are interested in something like that, the class again is January 20th. Go on michaels.com and sign up there. I will also post the link on my Instagram page directly, so you guys could click and go straight to the class. And if you guys make these cupcakes, I would love to see what they come out, what they look like. You can always tag me Wild Bakes, or make it with Michaels as well, and I'll be able to see what you guys do. All right, if you guys have any comments or any questions, again, my Instagram page is probably the best way to reach me. All right, well, with that said, thank you so much for joining, and hope to see you in my next class. Have a good one, everyone.